Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today I bring you Bas Rutten. Bas is a former UFC champion and three-time King of Pancrase, which was a fighting promotion out of Japan. He's now in the UFC Hall of Fame. He finished his career on a 22-fight unbeaten streak before retiring due to multiple injuries. He actually later came back in 2006 to fight again, winning by TKO. He's appeared in numerous television shows, including Martial Law and King of Queens. He's appeared in movies and even as a cameo in the video game Grand Theft Auto. He's also developed his own unique version of a training mask called the O2 Trainer, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. Now, you know the drill. If you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know that you can download the action plan, all the links, all the resources, all the great quotes, all the lessons from this episode and all the other episodes just by going to jimharshawjr.com/action. That's jimharshawjr.com/action. Bas, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, Jim.
I think a lot of my listeners have probably heard of you and know exactly who you are, so the bio may have been unnecessary for a lot of folks, a lot of former wrestlers, a lot of fight fans that listen to this show. Let's start with this, Bas. Tell us how you got started in fighting.
Well, that goes all the way back. Sorry, for my to my youth. I was a very sick kid, had eczema, had a very bad skin disease, and long story short, I went to a Bruce Lee movie. I got bullied a lot. I went to a Bruce Lee movie, and when I was 12 years old, Enter the Dragon. Saw that movie, realized if I would be like that guy, who was Bruce Lee, of course, that would change my life. The bullying would stop, and after 2 years of begging my parents, they allowed me finally to start doing martial arts. It worked out. Within 6 months, I had my first street fight. Biggest bully in town knocked him out.
Wow.
Big problem, though, because he broke his nose in the process. Police showed up. Mom and dad took me off of it. And then I started when I was 20 years old because I left the house, mom and dad's nest, so to say. And that's immediately I started doing taekwondo. I did karate. Then simultaneously, all at the same time, I started Thai boxing. 2 months later, I started competing in Thai boxing. And, the ball started rolling. I started competing. I started winning. Now, I lost the fight. It's a stupid fight I shouldn't have taken because I didn't even knew that I took the fight because I was drunk at the moment. I said yes to the promoter. And I found out 2.5 weeks before the fight when he called me where to send the posters to. And I asked him what posters. He said the fight. I said, who's fighting? He says, you. I said, who am I fighting? Yeah, Frank Lotman. I said, the animal? That was his nickname. Yeah. I said, when did I say that? He says, at New Year's. I go, whoa, wait. And then I start going back in my mind. I realized, yeah, I did talk to him. Well, if I said it, my word is my bond. It's always been. So I was not going to back out, which was not a smart idea. Needless to say, I lost that fight. And then I had a whole backlash of bad, people, everybody told me, you see, I always told you he couldn't fight. Whoa, wait a minute, guys. I knocked out 12 guys, one in the second round, the rest in the first. Lose a fight, and suddenly I'm the worst fighter there is. So, I didn't want to fight anymore for that audience, so to say, because I figured, hey, if they don't appreciate it, why would I fight for them? Because that's why you're doing it. You do it to test your skills. Of course you do it, but you also like, you like the people to like you. And I started doing these martial arts shows with a buddy of mine. Crazy, high choreographed fight scenes with sticks, with nunchucks, with long sticks, short sticks, break tests. We would break concrete. And we used to do that on music, like high-paced house music. And that suddenly became a success. And then once we started incorporating comedy into it, it became even a bigger success. We started getting on TV, and then we started getting on European TV, Eurosport. We started traveling, went to different countries to do these shows at big events. And on one of those events, was this guy, Chris Dolman, is a friend of mine, but I didn't know him at the time. I knew of him because he was fighting for the organization Rings in Japan. And we would come up with all these crazy acrobatics, We make a cartwheel and then a couple of backflips and then a somersault. That was our way to go to the floor, so to say, where we would do our demonstration. And he says, "Man, I remember you from Thai boxing. You were this crazy Thai boxer, super explosive. And now I see you doing all these backflips and everything." He said, did you ever think about free fighting in Japan? And I go, "Free fighting? What is that?" That's what they called MMA at the time. And he explained me the rules. And I go, "Yeah, well, if they're going to pay me money for it, I would love to try that." So, started training, injured here, injury there. And then suddenly one day my telephone went. And it was weird because I would never pick up my phone. I was one of those guys, like I call people on my phone, but I'd never pick up. And my answering machine was broke. But for some reason I picked it up and it was him. And he said, "You have to go to Amsterdam." That's where his gym was. I was in Eindhoven, which is like about a 2-hour drive. He says, "Jump in your car, come to Amsterdam, come to the gym. There's people here from a new organization in Japan, and they're looking for fighters." So I went in. I had to spar with one of the Rings champions from the organization that Chris Dolman was involved with. And the guy went really hard on me with sparring. And I told him in the break, after the first round, I said, "Listen, we don't have to go hard. They just look at us. If we have, what we can do technically wise." And I think that he maybe thought I was afraid or something, because then he turned it on in the second round. So after the second round, I went back. I said, "Okay, this is the deal. Please understand. I'm okay with it, but you're going to have to understand I'm going to do it back now." And now it was on, of course. And I knocked him out with a high kick, really spectacular, of course. And, of course, I don't know, but, it looked really spectacular in front of the eyes of the two Japanese guys, Funaki Masakatsu and Minoru Suzuki. And that was it. They were pointing at me, and they said, we want him. And I think 2.5 months later, I started September 21st, 1993, changed my life. It was the craziest thing. I knocked him out in 43 seconds. It was a little too hard. He spent 2 days in the hospital. It was very scary. Yeah, I was already contemplating if he would not come out, then that would have been it for my career, because I talked to my wife. A lot of money I spent on telephone cards over there because I was really worried about the guy. He was a nice guy. He came to introduce himself to me before the fight. A nice Japanese dude, a big one though, like 6'4". And but he came out, and that's where the career started. It was the craziest thing. Like the next day, I always tell people this because it's so insane. I mean, first of all, after the fight, when I knocked him out, I had a woman, everybody wanted a picture with me, which I never experienced in my life. A woman walks over with her baby, gives a baby to me. I'm making a picture with the baby. The next day I'm walking on the street and some people, would start bowing to me. And I go, what is going on here? And then I saw the newspaper with me knocking out the guy with a picture in it. I go, oh, wow, this is huge here in Japan. And that was it. That was my introduction. And, of course, I was hooked immediately.
Yeah, holy cow, what a journey, And so it started out with just that movie, right? Started out, you watched a movie, you were being bullied, you had eczema, I think you had asthma too, is that right?
Yeah.
And you watched the movie and saw a path out, right?
That was it, but I did not know that it would ever, lead to a professional career. I just realized after knocking the first guy out, which was one punch, his name was Shaki. I never forget. It was from a bad family. It was just one shot. And I was just mesmerized. I could not believe it. And all his buddies who were surrounding me, there were like 6 or 7 guys around me. Nobody stepped in. And the power that I had at that moment was crazy. And the bullying stopped instantly. I mean, it was insane. And now I became the guy that if I saw another kid getting picked on, I would take care of those bullies as well. You see, so I knew that I liked it and I knew that I was good at it. And then later on, I just walked the right path, I guess, and met Chris Dolman, and that's how I got it.
Yeah, that's interesting. My wife doesn't really have an athletic bone in her body. She didn't grow up doing sports and whatnot. I grew up wrestling since I was 6 years old. And wrestling was it was huge for me. I mean, I just, it was a confidence builder. I was a small kid. I was skinny. And I didn't feel like I was really good at any sports, but wrestling was one of those things I could the harder I worked, the better I got, and the more confidence that it built for me. And my wife now sees that and sees the value of being able to handle yourself in combat, man to man, mano a mano, and really pushes for my boys to get more and more engaged in wrestling. Both my boys wrestle, but my wife really loves. She's more interested in keeping them, wrestling at higher levels than I am. I see the value in it, but she really sees the value in having her boys be comfortable being able to defend themselves. Whether it's at the bus stop or elsewhere. It feels good to be able to walk into a room, even as a grown up, and knowing that you can handle yourself. Most likely knowing that you would never have to, but it's a good skill to have.
Yeah, it's like Francis of Assisi, right? He used to say, "Don't tell me, show me," and that's what you did to your wife. Saint Francis says that, but
that's right.
She saw how it worked for you, and that's why she pushes her kids right now. So that's how it works, man. Life.
Yeah,
show it.
It's interesting. So I work in fundraising and development. I work with some really high level donors, and I was talking to a guy about a year ago, and he was sitting there, and this guy's given millions of dollars to University of Virginia, my alma mater, in athletics, and he said, "Jim, come here." He goes, "How's it feel to walk into a room and know that you're the toughest guy there?" And it's like I could see the sort of envy that that he had. I'm here looking at this guy like he's got all the power in the world because he's got the money, but there's a certain level of confidence that comes with being able to handle yourself. So, Bas, you've gotten into quite a few things. So tell us what you're doing now. I mean, you're doing. I know you've done some commentating and whatnot. Tell me, you got your hands in some different things right now, right?
Yeah, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I used to have a TV show. We stopped last month, actually, after 9 years on TV. Weekly live TV show about mixed martial arts called Inside MMA. So we just stopped with that. So now I'm I'm picking my shots really careful where I'm going to right now. I do the World Series of Fighting on NBC. It's a mixed martial arts organization, and I'm the color commentator for that show. I have a gym here where I teach also twice a week, and then on Sundays I try to be there for my fighters who compete.
You're in California, right?
It's here in California. I have invented an O2 trainer that came from my asthma, that idea, which is it's a long training device that I had the idea when I was 14 years old. So that's a good thing that came out of it as well.
Yeah, and let's talk about that because when I was I have asthma as well, and I had it was more than just sort of moderate asthma. It was fairly severe, and it got really bad in college. And I remember most wrestling practices, I would have to deal with a low level asthma attack. I mean, asthma attacks can range from 0 to 10. A lot of days I'd have category 1, level 1 or level 2 or level 3. So just kind of low level stuff. But I remember I could either think, I could either feel bad for myself, right? But what my choice was, my lungs are working harder just to get through this practice than everybody else in the room. So I'm actually getting stronger. I'm getting better. This is better for my conditioning than anybody else is going through here. So that's a little bit of the sort of theory behind the training masks, but yours is different. You kind of taken it to a new level. Tell us about it.
Yeah, what I realized, like I had with me it was, let's say, a 5 all the time, and it was a 10, about 10, 11 times a year. I would have severe asthma attacks, like not able to eat, almost couldn't even drink water because you go, you're breathing. There's no way you can take your breath. If I would lay in bed and just sit up, I need to recoup from that motion, from just sitting up. So you can only imagine if I had to go to the restroom, that would be a nightmare for me. That would take 25 minutes, at least to go there, because you step 3 steps, you gotta rest. You take 3 steps.
I've had severe ones like that, yeah.
Oh, it was insane. But I also did track and field, and at a pretty high level. And because my father's side, all of these guys are athletes. My brother's a great athlete, and and I realized that after an asthma attack, when I would resume my track and field, I would run easier. I will break my running times on like the 400 or the 800, and I go, why is this? And I always thought maybe it was the medication that I'm taking. But then I went to the doctor, which, they teach you how to breathe. Every week you have to go to the doctor, so they have to make sure that you know how to breathe, because a lot of people, when they breathe in, they lift their shoulders, but you got to do everything with your core, of course. But a lot of people don't breathe like that. But at one of those doctor's offices visits, I saw a drawing of a pair of lungs on the wall in a frame. And that's where I realized that when your lungs are infected, when you think about infected lungs, you think your lungs are infected, the bag, so to say, but it's not. It's the air pipes that go to those lungs. And then I saw a drawing of an open air pipe and a closed air pipe. And I go, oh, boom, that was the light went off, the bulb, so to say, because I realized I've been training my lungs really hard for the last 7-8 days. I've been pulling in air through a really tiny hole. So then when the infection is gone and it's a normal pipe again, so to say, it's much easier for my lungs to breathe in. So why don't I come up with something that controls the air intake? And that's where my product differs from everybody else. Everybody has control air in and air out, resistance air in, resistance air out. And air out, you should not have resistance. That was the flaw for me, that training mask had. So if you completely can breathe out, you can use your entire inspiratory system again to breathe in. If you can't completely breathe out, because if you get tired and it's with resistance, well, there's still air in your lung. So I start making the product. Now, you have to understand, I had asthma my entire life. For every fight, every single fight, I always in the dressing room, when I started kicking, about a minute later, my lungs closed. It's exercise-induced asthma, they call that. Your lungs closed. I have to spray them open with albuterol. And then I can go. I can go for 2 hours. Then it doesn't matter anymore. But they would always close. If I would sneeze, for instance, violently, like if I sneezed loud 3 times in a row, my lungs would close.
Yeah,
a lot of asthma patient has that. Yeah, you probably had that. You spray your lungs open. So I had to always carry an inhaler with me. And 4 years ago when I made the O2 trainer, I mean, within 2 months, I had not used my inhaler since then. So, and my friend is talking about it. He said, man, I have asthma too. I sent him one in Holland. He is cured within weeks. And he goes, this is crazy. I want to sell them in Holland. So he starts selling them in Holland. And then I start promoting it. And I always told some people, I say, I cannot medically confirm it yet. I will. I guarantee you that. But it will cure your asthma. Like this, I've just pulled this one up. This is yesterday on my Twitter. He says, we did it, got O2 a month ago, just had my first BJJ class without an inhaler, 43 years of asthma. Take that.
Wow.
That's what they just wrote to me yesterday. And messages like that, right away I react. I say, send it to me by email. I mean, because if you go on the website, you have o2trainerblog.com. That's where you can find a lot of reviews. It's with everybody, or it's cured for 90%. They're here and there using an inhaler. And otherwise, it's completely gone. So now I teamed up with a trainer who tested another product, and he said it sucked. And I asked my manager, my lawyer, because my lawyer told me about that review he gave. I said, man, contact that guy, the scientist. I want to give him my product. And when he mentioned my name, the guy says, oh, Bas Rutten from the O2 trainer? Yeah, he says, we're already using it. He said, so now I'm in contact with this guy. He trains 4 Olympic gold medalists, including Usain Bolt, and a silver medalist. There's Dominic Cruz. I mean, a lot of people train there. He's a very smart guy. He's a higher IQ than freaking Einstein had. And he said, I have like over 20 medical journals now in where it's 100% proven what it does for you. So it's a really big thing for me, where that was the connection I needed. And now it's just about, bringing it out to the audience.
Yeah, and this is different too. It's not a full mask. I've seen it. It's not a full mask. It's just a mouthpiece, more or less, right?
Yeah, it's a mouthpiece. It's made from the highest quality of silicone. You can literally eat it. Nothing will happen to you. So that's why people say it's $45 or $49.95. But it's really really well made. You can drive with a car over it since it's silicone. It will still work, so you can break it. It's really easy. I used to use it as during training, and this new scientist gave me this new way. He says, well, you can still use it with training, but the very best way is to do 30 repetitions in the morning and 30 repetitions in the evening. You do that for 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, it's only one time in the morning, and you're good. It takes care of all the lactic acid in your core, in your diaphragm, all the muscles between your ribs, which is going to take care of your stamina. That's why people get tired. When everything gets tight around the chest, well, guess what? Your lungs cannot breathe in anymore because you're pushing them inside with your core. And he told me to do this, just these 30 repetitions. So now I'm still working out with it here and there. But the new thing is you do breathing exercises with it, 30 repetitions. It takes about 4 minutes. People are going to go now, oh, it's easy, 4 minutes. You're going to have the hardest core workout you had. I mean, you're going to feel muscles in your core that you never felt before, because it also automatically makes you breathe the correct way. If you lift your shoulders while breathing in through a tiny hole, you're not going to breathe in any air. But once you start using your core, then you're going to get all the air you need.
So you're doing this. You can use this without working out. Just like you said, just breathing exercises.
That's it. In the morning and the evening. If you do competition and you're 2 months out, I would suggest start doing it right now, 2 times a day. And after 6 weeks, the whole core you won't get lactic acid there anymore. You only have to do it in the morning, and then you're done.
Wow, that's interesting. And talk about the proper breathing technique. You talked about not lifting your shoulders, but breathing through your core. Talk about that.
Well, you can. I'm trying to visualize something right now. If you press your lips together and you try to make your lips a very tiny hole between your lips, and you breathe in as hard as you can. If you try to do that while lifting your shoulders up, because that's what people think, you have to lift your shoulders, you cannot breathe in. It's almost not working. But if you focus on bringing your belly out and really suck the air in with your belly, because understand how lungs work. People think the lungs themselves have muscles. Well, they don't. Of course, they have a little bit of a muscle, but what really sucks the lungs open is that there's an empty airspace. I can't come up with the word right now.
Vacuum,
between the body and the lungs. So a vacuum. And when you inhale, when you expand your chest, and then that little vacuum opens up the lungs for you. That's how your lungs work. So you're doing it with your core muscles, your intercostal muscles, which are the muscles between the ribs, and your diaphragm. So once you start focusing on breathing with your belly, breathing it in, and then really press your belly forward, you're going to realize, wait a minute, I can pull much more air in.
Wow, that's interesting. Have you heard of the Wim Hof technique?
No.
Have you heard of this guy? You got to check him out. WIMHOF, Wim Hof. A lot of my listeners have told me about this guy.
The Iceman.
Yeah, Iceman. Yeah. So
he says doing a lot of like 30 repetitions and then do push-ups, right?
Yeah. All kinds of things.
Yeah, no, I'm worked. Sven Sverringsson. It's a guy from Sweden who holds the world record. I read a book about him. I don't know who holds the world record holding breath. How many minutes do you think it's the world record?
Goodness, I don't know. 4 or 5 minutes, something. I don't know.
And if I say just go crazy, go for a higher number.
Yeah, 8 minutes.
Yeah, go crazy.
8, 10.
Yeah, no, 23.
What?
And this guy, and I realized when I started reading his book, he calls it packing, and I always called it stacking. And it's a technique. What I'm doing, I'm breathing in, my lungs all the way full, and then I start putting air in my mouth and swallowing, or not swallowing, but putting that air in my lungs through my mouth muscles. Yeah. And what happens is you start over stacking. That's what I call, but he calls it packing. Your lungs, they get more and more bigger. So there were a whole bunch of tricks that I already used to do myself. I came up with it myself. I just gave it different names that guy is using as well. So when I started his book, I go, wow, this is cool. This is the craziest guy, man. This guy, they go to like Antarctica or something. They sit on the ice. They make a hole in the ice. And then like 100 meters away, they make another hole in the ice. He sits in his Speedos on the ice. He's meditating. I mean, this is freaking cold.
Is this Wim Hof or is this the other guy?
In the hole. And he swims underwater to the other hole, comes out, sits back on the ice, and then he meditates himself again to get warm.
Yeah. Is this Wim Hof or is this the other guy you're talking about?
No, this is the other guy.
And what's his name?
Sverringsson. Yeah, let me.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look him up, and for the listener, I'll include his name and some information on that guy too in the action plan. This is good stuff. I'm learning more and more about breathing techniques lately.
He's something, man. That is, it is so badass. Those people. So some people can do every time when you think, that that you're good. That's the thing with me. I always said there's always somebody who has it, who can do it better.
Yeah.
Or when I had my diseases with the eczema and the asthma, there's always people who have it worse. That's how I always dealt with my problem. Because I know there's people who are covered in eczema 24/7. I didn't have that. I had spots here and there, but then I had attacks. So then for 2 weeks, it was really bad. And the same with asthma. There's people who have that asthma attack, what I have, for 7 or 8 days, the entire year around. So people always said, how could you be so, happy? I said, well, because there's people out there who are way worse than I am.
Yeah, count your blessings, right? You got to figure, look at the things we're grateful for. I was pretty similar. I had eczema, severe eczema too as a child. My feet would be cracked and bleeding, and I have to put plastic bags on. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was pretty bad. I went through many doctors and the whole bit. So asthma, allergies, I had just about everything you could imagine. So it sounds like you did too.
Yeah, it goes hand in hand. Asthma and eczema.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
If I would have more asthma, then my eczema would clear up, and the other way around. If I had eczema, then my asthma wouldn't be there.
Yeah. Now, so we talk about all these interesting things that people can do and achieve, and you're talking about, obviously, you're the UFC champion and you're in the UFC Hall of Fame, and you achieved amazing things in the ring, and you've done some really cool, incredible things outside of the ring. And now you have this O2 trainer. And from the outside looking in, it's just, you were just talented and you kind of picked something up and found your calling and turned around and boom, you're at the top of your game. Well, it's not that easy. You had setbacks, and we were talking before the call about, all the hoops you got to jump through and everything that you've been doing, all the effort that's going into this O2 trainer just to get it to where you've got it to now. I mean, talk a little bit about that. Talk about, I guess, maybe the habits that you learned in competing that have benefited you in life.
Well, with me, everything is habits. I love when people talk about that, because I truly believe everything in life is just building good habits. And once you have a good habit, it's so easy. You do it for a week, and it's and that's it. It's there to stay. I'm doing these speeches for these kids from high school when they graduate. So these 500 kids, I talk to them and talk to them about what they have to expect. When they go to college or when they go to work, I talk about the bullying, I talk about everything in life, and then I pull it back to what I experienced and how I dealt with those kind of problems. And my first question is always, you have to form good habits. I say, who woke up this morning with the alarm clock? You hit the snooze button. 10 minutes later, you hit the snooze button again. 10 minutes later, you hit the snooze button again. And maybe one more time, or then you went out of bed. And 80% of the hands go up. Everybody. Yeah. I say that's a bad habit. You can kill that habit within a week. If you decide tonight, when you sit in your bed, you go like, tomorrow morning when I hit the alarm button, I'm going to sit up in my bed. I'm going to go out. I'm going to brush my teeth. I say you do that for a week or 10 days. Now you just change that bad habit into a good habit. Yeah. You just have to see the understanding. Why would you hit the snooze button? Instead of hitting the snooze button 3 times, I would say put the alarm 30 minutes later, but go out when the alarm goes,
Sure.
Just set things. Now, what also helped with me is, of course, my asthma and my eczema, because there were moments, like I said, I had to go to the restroom, which would be a freaking adventure to do that. But, you set your goal. The end goal is going to the restroom, and then you're going to have to work really freaking hard to get there, and then you're going to have to go back. So automatically, I was instilled with these great principles. If I have to do something, you have to work for it. And that, together with habits, is everything. And what I always tell people, and apparently not a lot of people are good at it, and I was always really good at it, is talking to myself. And I'm not meaning I have a conversation with myself, but I do have a conversation, for instance, in the beginning of fighting. There are nerves, and it's how about you deal with those nerves. But then, if I would go, oh man, this is going to be really crazy, I would go, whoa, wait a minute, wait. What is going to be crazy? Well, the fighting, boss. The fighting, what can happen? Well, they can get me in a submission. Okay, they get you in a submission, so you tap, and then what? Yeah, but then I have to, all the people start talking about me. Maybe that comes from my Thai boxing, what I was talking about. But I say, okay, yeah, but do these people, do they pay you money? Do they, take care of your life? No. So what do you really care for those people? Okay, what can happen more? Oh, I can get knocked out. Well, apparently you're not going to feel that, because you're going to wake up and then you realize that you've been knocked out. What's another thing that can happen? And you start going over those things, and then you realize, wait a minute, it's really not that bad what can happen. And then you realize also that you're not fighting for yourself, you're fighting for people. And once you start doing that, and to get the praises from people, but if you do that, you automatically hate it when they talk bad about you. So once you realize that and you say, hey, listen, these are just opinions. These guys never fought. I mean, they didn't even train. They have no clue what's going on. And just really talk to yourself about it. You realize that it's all hollow. It doesn't matter. You know what I tell my students? They say, yeah, I'm so afraid. I say, okay, imagine you could fight this guy right now. This is in the dressing room before a fight. And I say, imagine you could fight this guy right now in a room where there's no windows. You close the door, you fight each other, and then whoever wins or loses, you're not allowed to talk about the outcome of the fight. You open the door, you walk out, you shake hands, and you're gone, and nobody knows what happened. He said, well, how would that feel? Yeah, that would be better. I said, would you feel bad if you would lose? He said, no, because there's days that somebody else is just better. Sure. I said, boom, there's your answer, man. Right. There's your answer. If you forget about all these people and just fight for yourself, you're going to be at your best.
Yeah. So I want the listener to wrap their head around this. This is one of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport, of all combat sports. And he dealt with nerves. He dealt with these nerves, and he figured a way out to talk himself down, talk himself into a peak performance state. And we're going through life, and we all have these fears, right? Whether it's, stepping into the ring and getting knocked out, or it's just, starting that business, or having that conversation, or picking up the phone, or, you failed at the last time you tried something, maybe it's losing 30 pounds or whatever the case might be. We've got that fear, but you've just got to push through it. You've got to ask yourself all those questions, boss, all those questions you just ran through, that you can kind of take yourself down that path of, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen here? Okay, that could happen. Well, so what? If that happens, then I can do this, or who cares if that happens? Like, we can all have this conversation with ourselves. And most people, and I'm talking to the listener again, I want you to think, like, what is that thing that you're afraid of? What is what's holding you back? And it's internal. Don't make no mistake. It is not external. It's something in you. It's not out there. It's inside of you. And you might think it's your boss, or your situation, or your education or lack thereof, or finances, or relationship, whatever the case might be. You've got a choice. You've got a choice in how you react to it, how you respond to it, how you talk to yourself about it, because success is a choice. You put one foot in front of the other, and take yourself down this mental path that Bas just told us about. So that's excellent stuff.
No, that's it. That's exactly it. And if you look at my fighting career, I didn't have a lot of people to train with for the ground fighting. So needless to say, I lost fights by way of submission. And I'm very competitive. And at the last loss against Ken Shamrock, I got so pissed at myself. I go, dude, if you want to become somebody in this sport, you're going to have to learn a ground game. I need somebody to train with. Now, I could train in Amsterdam, which was 2 hours away. And sometimes there were like 5 guys, sometimes more. And then sometimes when I walked in, guys would walk out. So I go, okay, I found this one guy, Leon, my buddy, and we started training 2 times a day, 3 times a day. I got obsessed with it. I started working on what I was not strong at. And I never lost a fight since. I actually won my next 8 fights by submission, 7 by submission, 1 with submission control. So, I just flipped it. People go like, how did you do it? I say, I just worked really, really hard at it. So always work on the things that you don't like to work on. Yeah. And once you also try, what people should try is to try to find the pleasure in it. Because in the beginning, if you don't like something, you don't want to do it. Look at yourself when you were a kid in school. All the everything that you excelled at were things that you liked. The things that you didn't like, you probably had bad grades at. And that counts for everything in life. But if you force yourself to start liking it, and boy, I got obsessed with ground fighting. I would wake up my wife in the middle of the night because I would dream a submission. And I would put her in the submission and then write it down. And the next day I bring it to my gym. So I got really obsessed with it. But that's the only way to get to become really good at it, to excel at it. And once you excel at it, well, nobody's going to take it away from you. That's why I got the 22 fight streak that you mentioned.
Yeah. And that life that we want, the life that we want, whether it's, again, relationships or health or money or business or whatever the case might be, it requires you doing those things that you don't want to do. It requires you being uncomfortable, getting uncomfortable, facing your fears. You can't have courage without fear. And it's you've got to face the fears. You've got to do those uncomfortable things. And like you said, Bas, and find the enjoyment in it. Find enjoyment in the grind, in the incremental improvements and success in those areas. So
and you can do it with everything. If you're that person who is, who don't like to look people in the eye, well, that's officially, that's not a nice thing to do. When you shake somebody's hand, you look away. Like with me, if a big guy, a strong guy gives me a hand and he looks away, but they look away for the wrong reason. They look away because they think they're bigger. I just keep holding their hand. And I say, hey, look at me, dude. How disrespectful are you doing that? You need to look away. But some people, they just don't like to make eye contact. They look down. So you don't do it to those because they don't feel comfortable. But that person, if he or she forces him or herself to, from now on, the next person you're going to shake a hand, you give him a nice sturdy hand, you look him dead in the eye, say, hey, how you doing? You only have to act tough because that's for them, it's acting tough. You only have to do that for probably 3 or 4 days. You do it 5 more days, and again, you change the bad habit into a good habit. You don't know anything else because you're going to see the response from people and how they appreciate it when you do that. So you can do it with everything in life, not only fighting, whatever profession you have. This applies to it.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about these little things, these granular things, because these are the habits. These are the things that make people successful in anything. So now, can you tell us, Bas, about a time where you failed? I mean, can you tell us about a time where, because I mean, you're UFC champion, Hall of Fame, like success. Can you tell us about a time where maybe some self-doubt crept into you? Maybe you pulled back the curtain a little bit and told us that you had nerves before the big fights. Which a lot of people don't think that the great ones have nerves, but they do too. But I mean, they also fail and they also experience self-doubt. Can you tell us about a time where you experienced that?
Yeah, the nerves were that's your first few fights that you do. Once you can control that and you realize, because again, you see, it's a habit. Once you go over there in your mind and then you fight and then you realize and you lose the fight and you go, was that really so bad? No. Okay, so I was right. Now you got it confirmed. And then the nerves are going to be gone because, it's good to have exciting nerves, but it's not good to have nerves that you're going to be afraid, because once you'll be afraid, you don't want to throw punches. You think you're going to be open. You start overthinking things. It's a really bad habit to have. So stay away from that. But, that's the great thing. You have the nerves in the beginning. You overcome them by just talking to yourself and just be honest to yourself as well. And then you fix that. And the thing that I overcame was, I already mentioned it, those were my losses. I really didn't like to lose. I knew it was not the end of the world. But listen, if I'm in this profession, once you do something, I always say you got to commit 100%. If you play a friendly game of basketball with me, trust me, I will always try to win, because that's the competitiveness in me. So once I realized that I lost 3 times by way of submission. And 3 times is a big thing for me. Everything in 3, it's always the worst. So after the last loss, well, that was it. That was either I'm going to change or I'm never going to be the champion. Because everybody knows right now, if they take me down, they probably can submit me. And I flipped it around, and it was great. And when I was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, they did the stats on me. And it was cool to see the stats because it said that at the end of my career, I actually won more fights by submission than by knockout. So I went in as a striker, but kind of came out as more of a ground fighter. And they said he had 14 submission victories, yet I never took anybody down. So that these people would take me down, I would reverse them or submit them from my back. And just because I learned the submission game. There's nothing better for you than to lose one time, to put both feet on the ground and show you, hey, you're not good enough there. Losing is there for a reason. If you would have been great there, they wouldn't have submitted you. But they submitted you, and that means you're going to have to work on it. And again, this applies to everything in life.
Yeah, goes back to work on your weaknesses and find the enjoyment in that. That's, man, what a great lesson. So Can we make this actionable as we wrap this interview up? The listener likes to get something actionable, something they can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start moving towards their goals. And maybe it's just like you referenced earlier, finding a habit, a habit that they want to change. They got to make a decision to change that habit. But one action they can take in the next, let's say, 24 to 48 hours to really start moving towards their goals in life.
Okay, whatever they do, and I use this line all the time, and I use it to my students. And when I read it, I believe Henry Ford said it. I don't remember that. It's a whole bunch of years ago. But just ask yourself, okay, so you want to become somebody or something in whatever profession it is. It doesn't really matter. Then you ask yourself, how do you want to be remembered in life? So when you passed away, let's apply this to fighting, because I've been fighting my whole life. Do I want to be remembered as the guy with all the talent but never really learned any skill? Do I want to be the guy who had all the talent but never really trained hard so he would lose on stamina? Would I want to be remembered as the guy who cheated and used to performance-enhancing drugs? Do I want, just how do you want to be remembered? And then you're going to realize, if you apply that to your goal, you're going to go, oh, I want to be remembered. First of all, you should be remembered as just being a decent person to others. That's the number one goal. And then your profession should actually be second, that they say, you know what? Yeah, he was a good guy. He helped a lot of people. And on top of that, he was a great fighter, But if you apply that to becoming a lawyer, how do you want to be remembered? I want to be remembered as the lawyer who made a difference. Oh, really? Yeah, okay, let's start working towards that goal. And then right away the habits. And sometimes these are things that you don't see, and listen to other people. This is the thing, man. If somebody tells you something negative about yourself, don't go into a fight. Right away realize, wait a minute, let's take a look at this, because they're not saying it for nothing. And I'm not talking about social media people. These are just with opinions, people who have no clue what they're talking about. But a close friend, if they tell you something, hey man, you always do this and this, you shouldn't do that. Don't get an attack. Realize, okay, yeah, I'll take that to the heart. I'm going to work on that. That's what I always say. You know what? You're right. I'm going to work on that. And write it down. Writing down is a great thing. Writing things down, just on paper, not even in your phone, writing it down, because for some reason that, you absorb it better than when you just type it down. But, face the fears and start with little fears. It's the same with people who want to cut out eating, Start with taking less sugar in the coffee. Instead of 3 spoons, take 2 spoons. Next week you go to 1 spoon, 1.5, gradually, baby steps. You already said it, steps, you were talking about that as well. It's little steps working towards goal. Don't expect an outcome the next day. Like now I'm training again and I have certain goals set in my mind, but I give myself, normally that goal I would reach within 6 weeks. Now I give myself 6 months. And why? Well, I'm 51 years old. And for what? Why do I need to really push it all the time? Slowly but surely, 1 repetition more every week. And that's how you work. 1 step. It's all about baby steps, and be calculated. And the trick is not to fall back. That's a hard one too. And if you fall back, you really talk to yourself. Another thing that I like to do, I really, I can look at myself in the mirror with a clean conscience. I know I have 4 world titles, and I can look at myself when I'm brushing my teeth. I never cheated. I never took performing-enhancing drugs. And I know people can say whatever they want, because there's, of course, always people that I used to fight, and they say, oh, no, he's using for sure because he was stronger than I was, and I'm using. I go, really? They call that training hard. They call that genetics. That's what they call. But I can look at and I don't care what people think. I look in the mirror, I look at myself, because the last person you want to fool is yourself. Trust me on that one. With the O2 trainer, it's a funny example. It comes with a nose clip. But I never use the nose clip because I simply don't breathe in through my nose. I can control that, and a lot of people can control. But there's people out there who cannot control it. And one person told me, Bas, but when I use the nose clip, because otherwise, sometimes I breathe in through my nose. I'm cheating. I said, dude, you're cheating the last person on the planet you should cheat, yourself. Yeah. If there's somebody you put on the highest pedestal, it should be you, and not in an egomaniac way, in a good way. You want to do something. So that's what I want to say. How do you want to be remembered? Ask that question, and again, applies to everything, and that will do great things for you if you actually believe it.
Man, so for the listener, I'm going to take a lot of what he just said there and put that into the action plan. So great stuff. And when you download that action plan, if you go to jimharshawjr.com/action, you get a PDF, and you can send that PDF, share it, send it. Help as many people as you can with some of this stuff, because there's some great stuff that Bas just shared with us. Bas, can you promote yourself a little bit? Tell us where we can find the O2 Trainer, where we can find you, follow you, etc.
O2trainer.com, that came easy. And for the people who make mistakes and call it the 02 Trainer, I got that domain as well. So because I knew they were going to make that mistake, so don't worry about it. And otherwise, just Google O2 Trainer, and then people see a clip right away of how it works. It will pop out on the screen. You can cross it out if you want. It's just a 3.5-minute clip. Take a look at it, because that's where I explain how it works. And then Facebook.com/Bas Rutten, very forward. After the slash, and the Bas Rutten MMA on Twitter and on Instagram. And, on Facebook, I promote some things, that I bring out, or interviews. For instance, when this interview come out, I'll put it out there. That goes automatically to Twitter. On Twitter, most of the time for me, it's answering questions from fans. That's what I do on Twitter. So I'm not the most exciting guy, but for the fans, it's kind of cool, because they can ask me whatever they want and I answer.
Cool. Well, I'll have all those links and everything you just said there. I'm going to have that all in the action plan, so you can make it easy for the listener to find you.
I have to throw one more out, because this is an important thing. It's bodyactionsystem.com. It's BAS, Bas, but bodyactionsystem.com. It's a punch and kick device that I developed a bunch of years ago, and it's where I train myself on. It's got targets. It has a head. You can do uppercuts, hooks, elbows. You can throw everything at the Body Action System, and it comes with audio workouts that I've already been selling for 15 years that are going hand in hand together. So, yeah, check that out. And, but I would also say BasRuttenSystems.com. I'm going to keep on going right now.
Yeah, bring it on. I'll have all the links. I'll put them all in there.
BasRuttenSystems.com. That's where I can find all my instructionals. That's a really great thing. And for pain right now, if people, because I used to have, a painkiller problem for a short amount of while, I would always tell people, look into CBD. That is the pain-numbing ingredient in hemp plants. They take all the THC out, leave only 0.3% in there, so you're not going to get high, but it's really good. I'm taking this new stuff. I believe they call it Recepta, but Receptra. Yeah, and anyway, it's really amazing what it does for the body, and especially like me, when you train hard, or for guys like me who like to train hard and build up lactic acid and have a lot of, inflammation. Really look into that as an alternative to painkillers, because it'll do a world of difference, and it's almost exactly the same feeling. You get a little calmer, and then the pain goes away. Everything feels more lubed up. So yeah, check into that.
Cool. Will do. And again, for the listener, make sure you check out the action plan. I'll have all the links and resources and everything we talked about here in this episode at jimharshawjr.com/action. Bas, thanks for making time to come on the show.
You're very welcome, my friend. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
And for the listener, remember, until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success. Success Through Failure is a member of the Athlete on Fire podcast network. Check out all of our shows at athleteonfire.com.